Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. If you're new here and you're curious why I just called you that, go ahead and watch the video above. In today's video, however, we are going to be analyzing / discussing Paris Hilton's nonverbal communication from her recent documentary that she just released called This Is Paris. Now, I want to be clear about something right off the bat. I am not a psychologist, so keep that in mind while I'm referencing the psychological aspects of where her mental state is at. My expertise lie in the reading and interpretation of body language with a general grasp of psychology. Due to the sensitive nature of many of the topics that Paris discusses, I'm going to try to do my very best to keep this video as factual and informative as I possibly can. I want to be able to raise awareness of the nonverbal signs of a person who may be dissociating so that you can better understand not only yourself if you're in those shoes, but you might also be able to understand those around you a little better. Now, for those of you who don't know what dissociation is, it's a psychological experience in which people feel disconnected from their sensory experience, sense of self, or other personal history. It's usually experienced as a feeling of intense alienation or unreality in which the person suddenly loses their sense of where they are, who they are, or even what they are doing. This is often caused by trauma, and it seems to have a protective aspect in that it allows people to feel disconnected from traumatic events. This sometimes is described as maybe an out-of-body experience. However, dissociation can be pretty distressing when it continues to occur, even when the people are engaged in just everyday activities. Now, Paris recounts in her documentary that she experienced a level of trauma at a disciplinary school, which her parents forced her to attend. She also mentions that because of this, she had some difficulties in the relationship field, suffering abuse during multiple different relationships. However, during her recollection of some of these traumatic events, her nonverbal communication was strange, to say the least, and many actually attribute it to possible dissociation. I personally agree with that. Once again, I am not a psychologist, so this is not a diagnosis, it's just an opinion. The other possibility is that she is lying or doesn't care, but I don't find that to be as likely. All of that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this read. So this first video that we're going to be looking at is of her talking about some of the relationships she had, and this is going to provide us an opportunity to be able to see dissociation in action and how it portrays itself non-verbally.
So, after being at Provo, you don't even know what love is or how to have a relationship.
You look hideous. I've been in a lot of relationships where people, they just get so controlling and get so angry that they become physical.
Okay, so you can see that her baseline, her nonverbal baseline, all the way around is relaxed. She very well could be recollecting what type of paint she picked out to paint a room, but she's talking about traumatic events. Now, this is common in dissociation as a person removes themselves from the traumatic thoughts or event that they are recollecting, and it portrays itself in this disconnected nonverbal communication. It is desynchronized, but it's not due to deceit. It's due to extra mental processing that portrays itself physically through their nonverbal communication. So you can see she looks like nothing is going on, and this is a sign of dissociation. Let's keep watching.
How many?
Five guys. We just got in an argument. I was trying to leave his house, and he just got really mad. Just was grabbing me and pulling me.
During this time, you can hear in her vocals, in her tone, the pitch, everything stays constant. It's very flat-lined. Once again, this would be uncharacteristic of the emotions that would normally be felt in these sort of traumatic events, so people could see it as possibly lying. However, it is far more likely that this is a dissociation sort of instance. There's the possibility that she's lying, or this is just how she is. However, non-verbally speaking, this sort of portrayal is common in dissociation. Just keep that in mind.
I don't really remember most of it, because I've had worse stuff happen. It's been strangled and phones thrown at me, computers. And I accepted it because I almost thought it was normal. I was like, oh, he loves me so much that he's going this crazy. And I just wanted love so bad that I was willing to accept being hit or yelled at or screamed or strangled or a lot of things.
So non-verbally, she's shaking her head no, while saying things that would be considered to an action. This could be a possible point of desynchronization. However, this instance of shaking her head no seems to line up with the idea of it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable thing that she went through this. She feels it's unbelievable, so she's shaking her head no in the disbelief of the situation. It's not a lie. It's the feeling of disbelief centered around the trauma that she went through in those relationships. And hopefully, in my mindset and what I would believe she's trying to communicate here is that she's learned from those and it's changing from here on out. So it's unbelievable she did that. Real quick here, this is going to be Paris telling her mother about the abuse that she suffered at this school that her mother and father sent her to. There's some interesting stuff centered around this, and we'll talk about it as it goes along.
What are you showing me, guys? You're scaring me.
No, it's not scary.
I reconnected with some of the girls from Provo,
Right?
and Katie is one of them. And Katie is doing this entire movement called Break Code Silence, which...
Okay, real quick here. On the mother herself, she has had work done on her face, so parts of her face that would normally be more reliable tell non-verbally are frozen, so they're going to be less reliable. Now, something to understand, with Botox and plastic surgery, that doesn't change the way your face emotes in that you frown, you're still upset, you're happy, you smile, so on and so forth. It literally is just a dampener on those expressions, to the extent at some points of completely shutting off where that expression would be. However, if you see somebody flash a surprise expression or an anger expression, no matter how slight, it is always a surprise or anger expression regardless of the work they've had done on her face. So with her, we're not going to get a lot from it, but there are instances that you can see some genuine emotion slip out. But we're also looking at Paris during this time, so let's keep watching.
survivors from these schools speaking out about this. My old roommates and everyone made a sign, and it basically says like what the school did to them, and now everyone's speaking out about it because they're realizing that a lot of the things that happened in their life is because of the school.
Acute panic disorder.
So you could see here in Paris's expression, she still has this flat-lined expression. This is likely also still due to dissociation. However, it could also be, as some people have brought up, that she is on the attack on this, perhaps as a revenge thing against her parents. She's bringing this big traumatic thing out for the first time to them on camera for a documentary. And there are definitely more appropriate places to do this. And we know that this was the first time due to the mother's reaction. Now remember, she has Botox and plastic surgery, so her face is not going to be expressive. However, looks of actual shock and surprise do flash through. Let's watch those.
Nightmares and insomnia, trust issues.
And we're all going to post it and basically raise awareness.
Verbally and emotionally, physically abused me.
Mm-hmm. Just screaming at me all the time.
Right.
Strangling, locking me in a room.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause here because as her mother was reading it, you saw her eyebrows raise. This is a common gesture of surprise. And then after that, as Paris is explaining what it was, you could once again see another expression, micro-expression of shock cross her face. This is genuine emotion. This means that she's surprised. This means that this is the first time that Paris has told her, and one must ask the question, why now? Why here? Could it be a safety thing because there's people around so she feels safer doing so? She herself states in the actual documentary that her parents are the king and queen of sweeping everything under the rug, so perhaps this is her also holding her parents accountable. It's possible, however, it also does have that vibe of maybe this is a little bit of revenge for what happened to her. Maybe Paris is a little bit vengeful in this sort of situation, and I think that actually might be partially true, and I'll point it out non-verbally here as to why.
I know this is something that we've never discussed before.
So even during this time, she starts off by doing this looking down at her mom. This is a superiority expression. If you see somebody who's looking down at you, down their nose at you, they think they're better than you. And to see this sort of expression from Paris to her mother in this sort of situation, it conveys that Paris is very much in control of what's happening, of what's occurring. Now, this isn't definitive evidence as to her showing that she's vengeful. However, it doesn't really go so far into proving that she's just wanting to feel safe. At very worst, she's aggressively defensive against her mom using this sort of expression. Let's keep watching.
They were constantly being abusive in every way. But I couldn't tell you guys because every time I tried, I would get punished by them. Or they would say, we're just going to tell your parents you're a liar and they're not going to believe you. And basically, they just told me that so many different times that I was afraid to ever even say anything or bring it up.
Now, this is possibly true. Her nonverbal communication at this point is not definitive. There's a couple possibilities as to what could actually be happening here psychologically for Paris. Either one, she doesn't believe this. You could see some of her head shaking in this situation to where there's a possibility that that's not the reason that she didn't tell her parents. She might not have told her parents for a number of reasons. So there's the possibility she might be lying. However, in this sort of instance, I don't want to assume that she is being manipulative towards her mother in this point. I would rather assume that she is indeed the victim until proven otherwise. So let's keep watching from here. This is a classic expression of shame. You could see this throughout all people. This look of covering one's eyes and face is a look of shame. Likely, the mother is ashamed of what she did to her daughter. However, it could also be she's ashamed to have this brought up in front of cameras because, as Paris has said, they are the king and queen of sweeping things under the rug. Regardless, this is an expression of shame, possibly mixed with grief or guilt.
Had I known this, and you know that Dad and I would have been there in 1 second. Oh, boy.
Love you, Mom.
I'm so proud of you. And, you know.
Okay, so what do you think? What's your opinion as to what that whole portrayal could have been? In my opinion, from what I saw, from what I read, from watching the entirety of the extended cut of the documentary, to be able to establish as much as I could non-verbally about the people involved in this, I do believe that Paris was one likely genuinely abused, and the misalignment that we're seeing during these areas, these hot points, is dissociation rather than her showing deceit. Along with that, I do also believe that her reason behind telling her mother on camera on a documentary for the first time about this was not completely innocent. I do believe that she probably was getting a little bit of revenge on her mom for the atrocities that her mother and father really did portray towards them as kids. If you haven't watched this documentary, go and watch it. It gives you an excellent taste as to how terrible fame can be when you start a child out at a very, very young age, being exposed to so much fame and going from there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and hit the like button. That lets me know that you did enjoy it. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell if you want to be able to see more regular analysis videos like this. I will be increasing my upload rate here soon. Hopefully to at least two videos a week with some of the original content that I used to do here on the channel. If you want to be able to support me, I appreciate it in advance. You could do so by clicking the Audible link below and using that link to sign up for Audible. It donates to me. You could cancel it before it runs out, and you're golden on that front without ever spending any money. You could also buy merch down there, as well as joining my Patreon. I have some plans for what I'm going to be doing over there for you. There's going to be some changing of the tiers, but I'll do a whole other video on that a little bit later. With all of that being said, that is all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.